Grandpa stole his first buggy in 1892. I met your grandma pig slopping in 46.
Oh, every Christmas we'd visit my Uncle Fred in prison.
And welcome, America, to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. Well, it is great to have you along today. It's the first show since RootsTech, and I got to tell you, what a conference it was. We're going to talk to David Lambert about that coming up here in just a few moments. I'm going to share with you a couple of my favorite 50 interviews of all time on Extreme Genes this week. One of them is a pair of ladies who call themselves the Driveway Sisters, and you will hear why, and you'll hear their incredible story coming up in about 10 minutes. And then later in the show, we're going to talk to a woman who learned about a kidnapped relative, a relative that was kidnapped as a child in the 1890s, and how she was able to trace that kidnap victim forward to that person's descendants today. It's an amazing story. You're going to want to catch all of that. Hey, if you haven't signed up for our weekly Genie newsletter yet, this is your weekly reminder. You got to get this done. Just go to extremegenes.com or our Facebook page. It's absolutely free. You get a blog from me each week, plus links to past and present shows and links to stories you'll be fascinated by as a genealogist. Now, out to Boston. David Allen Lambert is standing by, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. And David, I know what you want to talk about first.
I almost didn't pick up the call because I still have thousands of more photographs to run through deep nostalgia from my heritage.
Yes. And if you're not familiar with this deep nostalgia thing is a way to animate your old photographs on MyHeritage. And all you have to do is upload one of your ancient photos, maybe a carte de visite or a cabinet card or a daguerreotype, and you can actually see your ancestors moving around, looking at things, looking up and down, smiling, blinking. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is, and you can upload it to social media like Facebook or Twitter, and you can actually save it as an MP4 so you can send it to a family member, but give them a warning before you tell them you just animated their great-grandparent. Because I fell off the couch with my laptop when my dead great-grandfather winked at me on my computer screen.
It's unbelievable. And these are MP4s, so you can download them to your computer. They're yours to keep and share around. And thank you to MyHeritage for a phenomenal thing to bring to the world. In fact, I'm sure they're having trouble keeping the site up sometimes. There's so many people having fun with this.
Exactly. Well, MyHeritage has, of course, been very popular for genealogists. They have over 62 million subscribers, and they are now going to be sold for a price tag close to $600 million. They will be purchased by Francisco Partners, according to the news from TechCrunch.com.
Wow.
So big news for this Israeli company that's really become a global company and helped so many, and now it's animating my dead ancestors every hour on the hour. Well, it's great stuff that's out there in technology, but RootsTech blew my mind. Over 500,000 people, and I had over 42,000 people at RootsTech that were my cousins.
Isn't that crazy?
It is, but the best part was, some of them are like way distant from the 1600s, and that happens a lot.
Most
but
of
I was looking at so I had a second cousin, I know who she was, and a third cousin, I knew who they were. But I had a fourth cousin from the West Coast, and their connection was in Canada. My great-great-grandfather, Moses Taylor, died back in 1887. I have no photograph of him, but now I have a photograph of his kid brother, who was born 1850, who lived for 87 years and died in California in 1937. And I have a whole new branch of the family tree to track down and investigate. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you, RootsTech. One of the things from RootsTech, which is amazing, is a new technology that Family Search talked about. And if you look at the session called Computer-Assisted Indexing, you can even go to a link and upload a handwritten document fish, and it reads it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It pulls out the names, it pulls out the dates. And I'm not talking optical character recognition that you get from a scanned document like Adobe or something like that. This is from a handwritten document, and it's finding the names, the places, the dates, and it's reading parts of the text. Now, some is harder to read than others, so it's something that is going to be improved upon. But wow, and thank you, Family Search.
I think wow is the operative word for RootsTech Connect this year. Incredible, some of the technology here.
Well, our family history on news isn't always in RootsTech, and it isn't always in America. And this time we're going to go to Rome, Italy. And we've talked about Pompeii a batch of times. And, of course, Pompeii from Mount Vesuvius and all the city that was buried by ash. They've now found a pretty well-preserved four-wheeled bronze and tin chariot.
Wow. Let's see. We found the Egyptian brewery, and then they found in Scotland the Viking beer hall, and now we've got the Pompeii ceremonial chariot. That's a pretty good few weeks.
I think that could be your ancestors' Edsel. So you hear about these people out in the middle part of the country. They go out and open up a barn. Oh, look, there's a 1930 Packard, brand new, sitting there since great-grandpa bought it. I mean, imagine if the barn fell down and a volcano fell over it. That's kind of what it would be kind of like.
Yeah.
But, I'll tell you another story from across the pond, and this is from a friend and colleague named Miko Cleland, and he is known as the Dapper Historian, and he posted a probate from the 1820s. Be prepared for this one. I bequeath to my monkey, my dear and amusing Jacko, the sum of £10 sterling per annum, to be employed for his sole and exclusive use and benefit. To my faithful dog Shock and my well-beloved cat Tib, a pension of £5 sterling. On the death of all three, the sum appropriated for this purpose shall become the property of my daughter Gertrude.
What?
To whom I give this preference among my children, because ready for this, because of the large family she has and the difficulty she has in bringing them up. What? Are you kidding me?
That's insane. What a find. Thank you, Miko, for sharing that with the world. And thanks to everybody tied with RootsTech. I mean, there's just so much stuff to learn and still play with, and it's up for free for a year at rootstech.org. So, David, we'll talk to you at the back end of the show, okay?
Sounds good to me.
As we get into Ask Us Anything. And on the way next, one of my Fisher's favorite 50 interviews of all time, it's the Driveway Sisters. You'll understand the story when you hear it, coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Anytime is a great time to learn more about your family. Did you miss RootsTech Connect this year? It's not too late to experience RootsTech classes, keynotes, and how-to content. Just visit rootstech.org to see what you missed and to experience RootsTech Connect on your own timetable. Select inspiring and insightful messages that will help you in your pursuit to connect with and share your family story in new ways. You can then use the free resources found at FamilySearch.org or the Family Search Family Tree app to have a deeper personal experience getting to know your family, past and present. Connecting with family and learning about your ancestors provides healing, peace, and a sense of belonging. And it's easy to share what you learn with others to help and inspire them as well. Visit rootstech.org for some inspiration or visit familysearch.org to continue on your journey of family discovery today.
At Legacy Tree Genealogists, we provide families like yours with the stories of your ancestors, a legacy that will be cherished for generations to come. Legacy Tree Genealogists provides genealogy research for clients worldwide, helping them discover their roots and personal history through records, narratives, and DNA analysis. And when your research requires access to on-site archives in the countries your ancestors lived, Legacy Tree Genealogists has researchers in more than 100 countries around the globe who know the local language and how to get their hands on the records you need. Legacy Tree Genealogists is the recommended research firm of genealogy industry leaders worldwide, including MyHeritage, 23andMe, and more. Check out what our clients have to say. Absolutely the best. They communicated through the entire process, and my report arrived on time. The story of my family with supporting documents was very fulfilling. Tom G. Google review. Don't wait any longer. Request your free quote today at legacytree.com. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Well, Genies, what a time we're all going through right now. And with all this time on our hands, you probably agree the best lemonade we can make out of this is to sharpen our genie axes and learn how to extend our family trees, gather more photos and documents, and discover those remarkable family stories our descendants can benefit from for generations. Well, I have more time now, too, and I want to help you learn what you need to know. That's why I've created a new Facebook group, Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. I'm so pleased that so many of you have already signed up and are helping us to create a supportive community of family history researchers. On this page, we can brainstorm and share ideas on how to tear down those brick walls that we all have. So feel free to join us. The Facebook page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. Feel at home with others who live in our genie world and want to make the most of this unique time. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. Join us. Welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And today, as we kind of put RootsTech in the rearview mirror, we thought we'd share with you a couple of my favorite 50 interviews of all time. Listen to this story about Hillary and Dawn. You know, there are things that happen in family history research that are just unexplainable. And the story of my next two guests really falls into that category. They're in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Meet Hillary and Dawn. How are you, ladies?
Hi, we're good.
You guys, I mean, you're next door neighbors. You share a driveway, right?
Yeah. Correct.
All right. Now, Hillary, you're the younger of the two ladies here. You're, what, about 31 years old? And
I am 31.
31, and as I understand it, you're an adoptee. And like a lot of adoptees, you want that hole in your life kind of filled. You want to figure out where you came from. And your family situation was that you came from an open adoption. In other words, the records weren't hidden too much for you. So you were able to get access pretty easily, yes?
Yes.
So where did you go to find out about your background?
I was adopted from Catholic Charities. I thought it was going to be much more challenging, but all I did was go online to their website and filled out some information. And within a day, actually, the very next day, I got a call from the lady there that said my adoption is an open adoption and that they had all my records.
Come and get it, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
They ended up sending a packet in the mail then in the next couple of days. I just have been waiting for my whole life. So.
Well, now, tell me about that. I mean, you were how old when you decided to look, and how long had you been wanting to look?
Well, in 2012 was when I started this actual search.
Okay.
That's when I became pregnant with my daughter, Stella.
Okay, so you're about 25, you're starting your own family, and you want to know.
Yes, for health reasons, and I just really wanted to know, just mostly for Stella's sake and for my sake, and I knew it was finally time to get some answers.
Sure.
And I have wanted to know my whole life. Ever since I can recall, I knew I was adopted. My parents have told me, so, I mean, forever. I couldn't wait till I was old enough and could find out more information.
Could do that. So you finally got around to it. And so you went to work and you found some interesting information in there.
Yes. In the pamphlet, the very first page, I was able to see what my birth mother's name was, where she lived. And then in the next paragraph, they said who my birth father was, but unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. Mm-hmm. The obituary was in my packet.
Which kind of led you now to next of kin?
Yes. In the packet, I was able to see that I had two half-sisters that I had so the same father, and then I had two half-brothers from the same mother.
Different mom. Were you able to find these people?
Yes. I was able to find my two half-brothers on Facebook, actually. Pretty much that day, I think, I went on.
Wow.
And I was able to find them because their last name is not very common. And I knew I could tell immediately that they looked like me and resembled me. And I had their address, like where they were from, so I knew that was them.
Okay.
And they accepted my request without even knowing who I was. So I was fortunate enough for that.
Yeah.
And I kind of kept it a secret for a while from them. I didn't confront them even until 2015, actually. I just kind of held it all in because I was nervous about telling them.
Sure.
Asking them, I didn't know if they knew I existed. And, I always didn't want to step on anyone's toes or ruin anything. But
it's a touchy thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I was not able to locate my sister. Her name was Dawn Johnson.
Okay. From
my father's obituary and from the other stuff in the packet. I would go on Facebook and type in Dawn Johnson, and I would get a billion Dawn Johnsons.
Mm-hmm. This whole family was around your area there in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, pretty close. Come to find out, my birth mother lived an hour and a half away from me my whole life, and my 2 half-brothers, and then Dawn lived 2 hours away from me.
Right. Now, let's talk to your neighbor, Dawn, here. Now, Dawn, you moved in only last year, right?
That is correct. We purchased the house in June of 2017.
Okay. And you share this driveway with Hillary, and Hillary's got a little girl, 4 years old, who I understood took quite a shine to you.
Yes. I found out her name was Stella, and she was so intrigued. She always wanted to come over, find out what I was doing, and I was mostly by myself during the day, as my significant other, Kurt, worked nights, so he slept during the day at our other house in Greenwood. And she would constantly come over, and it was wonderful to have a little girl around who was so intrigued in everything that I was doing.
How'd you feel about that, Hillary? Were you okay with that?
Not exactly, no. I had not met the neighbors yet, and I constantly tell Stella, I'm like, Stella, stop going over there. We don't even know them. No, Mom, they're really nice. They really like me. I'm like, well, I would constantly tell her to not go over there because I'm like, just wasn't sure. But she insisted I couldn't stop her. She would literally just share the same driveway, so she wasn't far away, but she would constantly be over there.
So she introduced you basically to the new neighbors.
Yeah, she made me want to get to know them, maybe, a little bit.
And you found out their names were Kurt and Dawn.
I did, yes.
Did you find that kind of intriguing?
I did find that intriguing. My husband was talking to Dawn when they met, and she told him that she was from the Greenwood area, that her name was Dawn. And he came inside and told me, he's like, I met the new neighbors. And it's Dawn, she's from Greenwood. And it hit me right away. From my father's obituary, it said Dawn Johnson from the Greenwood area.
Yeah.
So it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I told Lance, I was like, my husband, do you get it? Like Dawn Greenwood? And he's like, what? So I brought out my pack of stuff and showed him. And he's like, oh, yeah. We're like, no, there's no way. No. So we kind of giggled. We're like, well, it could be, but no, we didn't know her last name, and we were just getting ahead of ourselves, so we kind of dropped it for a little bit.
Really? So I understand from one account you actually were staring at her quite a lot. Did that make you uncomfortable, Dawn?
Yeah. It started pouring when we were, me and Kurt were ripping off the shingles on our garage, so we had to obviously come off of the roof and go into the garage. This was in the first part of August, so we were standing in the garage waiting for the weather to pass, and Lance, Hillary, and Stella came over into the garage, and we were all standing there, and it's just a strange feeling is like she was like staring at me from moving around all angles of me. Now, mind you, I haven't really talked at all. It was basically, a wave, a smile, and that was about it. Stella was the one that I had more association with. So it was a little strange having this person stare at me. And as we were leaving, pulling out of the driveway, because we were not staying overnight here yet, the house wasn't ready to sleep there. So we were leaving, Kurt and I, out of the driveway, and Kurt turned to me and he said, what was up with Hillary? She wouldn't even let me an inch in between you and her to put the rest of the stuff away. I said, I have no idea. So, we just left it at that and went home to Greenwood and took a shower. And that's the same night that all these strange text messages started coming through because we gave our phone number to Lance in case something happened while we weren't here, because we weren't here all the time working on the house. Just out of the blue, I'm getting text messages from the neighbors. So.
Now, Hillary, you had seen something, though, that kind of clued you in that this might really be your half-sister. And what was that?
Yes. Early August, there was a very large truck that pulled in our driveway, our shared driveway, a pack of shingles. And on the shingles, there's a huge red banner, 20 feet long. It was huge. And it said Johnson plastered across the side of the shingles. And I was home alone. I lost it. I thought, oh my gosh, it's Dawn Johnson. Like, oh my gosh, she's from Greenwood. This is how many Dawn Johnsons live in Greenwood? It's a small town, right? I mean, I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
Call my husband. I'm like, should I call her name is Johnson? He said, oh my gosh, yeah, you got to ask her. I'm like, I'm not going to ask her, like, who her dad is or whatever. I'm like, I'm not just going to go ask her, like, how's this happening? I didn't even know for sure still.
Sure.
Until I started asking her those random questions.
And this is where the crazy the texting thing began, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And then finally you just came out with it?
Finally, yeah, I asked her a little series of questions from stuff I knew. I started off with asking if she was the Miss Loyal Cornfest Queen, because I had known from my father's obituary that Dawn Johnson was Miss Loyal Cornfest Queen. And she said, yes, why? And then I pretty much just blurted out after that. I just said, who's your birth dad? Who's your dad? And she said, Wayne Klaus, our father's name. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. And my husband was sitting there, and we were screaming. It was 9:30 at night, and I'm screaming, crying, joyful, scared because I still haven't told her who I am. So then I texted her, and I said, we have a lot to talk about. Can I call you? And she said, sure.
Dawn, what was your feeling when you heard this? Did you know that Hillary existed?
No, I actually did not meet my birth father till I was 18. So we never had a really close father-daughter relationship. It was quite a shock because I put together the text messages, those 3 questions that she asked me, and I knew they were in my father's obituary, and I knew Hillary was adopted from her husband, Lance. I picked up the phone, and she said, you know how I told you I was adopted? And I said, yeah. Well, I know who my birth father is. And at that instant, with all them questions and her stating that, I said, you and me have the same dad, don't we? I said, oh, my God. And there's not enough words to describe, the feeling.
No.
It is just like in shock. And I'm like, I wasn't upset. I was very grateful. It was just, oh, my God, I got another sister out there. How wonderful. And that means Stella's my niece.
That's right. Little Stella.
And it's so weird because we looked at 20-plus houses in the city, and they go extremely fast. And we found this house, and the only thing we did not like about it was the shared driveway.
The shared driveway.
Yeah.
That is an incredible story, ladies.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for both of you. This is an amazing thing.
Thank you.
Your family circle's expanded. And I can tell, I'm sure you've told this story already 100 times to one outlet or another, but it still impacts you just as you repeat it, right?
Yeah,
it still impacts. I'm not kidding. I get goosebumps and chills every time almost. We will cry sometimes. It never gets old, I'll tell you that.
Never gets old. Well, Hillary and Dawn, thank you so much for coming on Extreme Genes and sharing your story. That's what it's all about in family history research, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
All right. You guys have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. You too.
And coming up next in 3 minutes, another of my favorite 50 interviews of all time. This one about tracing forward a relative who was kidnapped. Wait till you hear this. Hey, welcome back. It's Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show with Fish here with one of my favorite 50 interviews. One of the crazier stories I've heard in a while came to my attention through a woman in Chicago. Her name is Terry O'Connell, 21 years a genie. And Terry, welcome to Extreme Genes. I'm really excited to share this story with everybody because it's incredible. At what point in your research did you discover that you had a kidnapping in your family?
I've probably known most of my genealogical time. It was a story my grandmother and her sisters always talked about. They always wondered what happened to Harry, who was their mother's brother.
And Harry was how old when he was kidnapped?
He was an infant. This was in the late 1890s. He was born roughly between 1895 and 1898 in Ohio. So after Harry was born, his mother, Susie, had to go into the hospital. There's many different stories as to why she went in the hospital, but she went into the hospital. And her husband, John, was bringing Harry back and forth to the hospital to nurse daily. In doing so, he couldn't work, so he couldn't provide for his family. So he went next door to Susie's best friend, who had just lost a baby, and asked her if she would care for the baby and if she would wet nurse for the baby, and she agreed. Every day, he would wake up in the morning, he would go over and check on the baby and make sure that this woman had everything she needed, and he would go to work and, go about his day. And every day, everything was fine. On the day Susie was due to come home from the hospital, he got up, he went to go check on the baby, and the house was empty.
Oh, my gosh. So this has been a mystery for now 120 years or so, and along comes our good friend DNA.
Right. So this past March, I have a cousin, Tim, who lives in Tennessee, and he descends from this family as well. And he found something rather odd in his DNA.
Okay.
He found this match. And this match had all these Norwegian names except for one. And it happened to be Hilton, which was Harry's last name.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the match had other people who had Hilton on their tree, and that's how he was able to figure out that this might be the connection you were looking for all these years.
Well, when he found it, he was very adamant. I really don't think it has to do with the missing baby, because he sent me an email. He's like, go in your DNA matches, look for this gentleman, John, and take a look at his tree and come back and tell me what you think. And I emailed him back, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, the missing baby. And he's like, no, I don't think it's him. And I was so excited, but it was March, and March is my big time because I focus on Irish research. So I really didn't have time to play with DNA. And we went back and forth through emails, and Tim was a trooper all month, kept going in, looking for records, trying to find things, and every once in a while he would email me a little update. Well, just after St. Patrick's Day passed, I got another email from him, and it said, hey, I'm back to thinking we're onto the missing baby here. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's cool. Keep me updated. I'm still really busy. He was like, okay, that's cool. So about a week or so passed. I happened to have gotten sick from being overworked through March. I was sitting on my couch, and I was like, let me go take a look at all this DNA stuff and see what I can find. Because, obviously, I'm intrigued. We have this 120-year-old kidnap case. Everybody wants to know what happened to poor Harry, and it's unfolding in front of us.
Sure.
So I pulled up my tree, and I went and I looked at this gentleman, John, who is now our genetic cousin, and we're just trying to fit him in. Like, really, where does
What
he
is
fit
the
into
relationship
this
for
line?
John? Have you figured that out, or what is it predicted by ancestry?
I want to say John might be like a second cousin.
Okay.
With the removed
That would be about right, I mean, for that time period, especially if you're sharing great-grandparents.
Right. So I looked at John's tree, and I thought, okay, so I know that we're matching on this line. Obviously, it's going to be the Hilton DNA because that's the only other name in John's tree that's going to connect to my tree.
Sure.
It's going to connect to Tim's tree as well. Now, here's the interesting part. So John and I share the Hilton DNA, and we're sharing this Garlinger DNA. But Tim, the cousin who found all this, only shares the Hilton DNA, though he also descends from that Garlinger line as well.
Well, you're not sharing it. That's all it means is you didn't inherit the same DNA.
Right, exactly. So without the two of us, we wouldn't have been able to put it together.
Yeah. So now have you been in touch with John, and have you figured out who Harry was, what the new name was?
So we have emailed with John back and forth, Tim and myself. So this is what we know of Harry's life. Harry moved to Iowa. The woman that he puts down as his next of kin, we are assuming is the woman that took him. And the name isn't the same, but it was close.
Sure.
He never changed his name. He went by Harry Hilton.
He went by Harry Hilton the whole time? How did he even know his name? They must have told him, obviously.
So that's what we were like, okay, this makes absolutely no sense. Who kidnaps a child and doesn't change his name?
Yeah, that is...
Especially at a baby.
Who does kidnap it? So did you find them in the census records? What is that showing?
So there's been a couple records that Tim has found. He's been on that search, and he's found some military stuff like draft cards. I don't think he's found them in the census yet. The only thing that we can figure out is that because this woman who took him was best friends with Susie, and according to family stories, the only thing that comforted her about Harry being gone was that she knew that he would be loved.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So on the flip side, my thought process is that she really loved Susie so much, but she also just loved this baby, and after losing her own, couldn't give up another.
Of course.
That she probably just told him that maybe his parents died, and she promised to take care of them.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, your parents died. I've taken care of you, and your real name is this. Okay.
Yes. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that does make sense. That would fit very nicely. But to find him in the family grouping on in the 1900 census, the 1910 census, before he's an adult, I mean, that would be really interesting to see, wouldn't it?
It would, and I'll have to go look. I know I have a ton of emails from Tim of the things he found when we were going through this last March, because it would be very interesting, because we do have addresses from the draft cards and
Sure.
and that. And we know that he was career military. The first marriage didn't last. John's family story tells us that Harry did marry again, and there are other children out there. We just haven't found them yet.
You haven't found them yet. Have you seen photographs of him yet?
Of Harry, we have.
Wow. What was that like the first time you laid eyes on the picture of the baby that was kidnapped?
I can't remember if it was a military picture or not, but my cousin Tim sent it to me. And he sent it with a picture of another one of the Hilton brothers. And they all have this, like, little point in their eyebrow.
Okay.
So
that's the distinguishing feature, huh? The little point in the eyebrow.
And Harry totally had it.
Okay. All right. And he was a full brother to the others, so that's really interesting.
Yeah. But what is really weird, so John and Susie, all of their kids are registered, all their births in Ohio, and I have found them, but Harry's is not.
Huh. But you've got the DNA, so you know for a fact
But we've got the DNA.
Yeah, there's no question as to who his parents were.
Yeah, I mean, unless the only other way it could go is if John had an affair with one of Susie's siblings.
Yes.
That would be the only other way he could have both of that DNA.
Yes, that would be true, I suppose. Nonetheless, it would come in a little differently, though. The DNA match would be off.
Yes.
If that were the case. So I don't think that would be it. But, that's really cool. A 120-year-old cold case solved by DNA and just by an ordinary person with an extraordinary find. Well done. I'm impressed, Terry.
Thank you. The family feels the same way. They're like, I can't believe that you guys figured this out.
Well, it's been part of your family lore for literally over a century, and now we have these amazing tools that you can do this stuff with, and really anybody can learn how to do it. It's an amazing process and so much fun, and it's life-changing. That's the thing.
It really, truly is.
Terry, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Wow. There you go. There's a couple of stories for you. And coming up next, David Allen Lambert returns for another round of Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, in 3 minutes.
At Legacy Tree Genealogists, we provide families like yours with the stories of your ancestors, a legacy that will be cherished for generations to come. Legacy Tree Genealogists provides genealogy research for clients worldwide, helping them discover their roots and personal history through records, narratives, and DNA analysis. And when your research requires access to on-site archives in the countries your ancestors lived, Legacy Tree Genealogists has researchers in more than 100 countries around the globe who know the local language and how to get their hands on the records you need. Legacy Tree Genealogists is the recommended research firm of genealogy industry leaders worldwide, including MyHeritage, 23andMe, and more. Check out what our clients have to say. Absolutely the best. They communicated through the entire process, and my report arrived on time. The story of my family with supporting documents was very fulfilling. Tom G. Google review. Don't wait any longer. Request your free quote today at legacytree.com. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Anytime is a great time to learn more about your family. Did you miss RootsTech Connect this year? It's not too late to experience RootsTech classes, keynotes, and how-to content. Just visit rootstech.org to see what you missed and to experience RootsTech Connect on your own timetable. Select inspiring and insightful messages that will help you in your pursuit to connect with and share your family story in new ways. You can then use the free resources found at FamilySearch.org or the Family Search Family Tree app to have a deeper personal experience getting to know your family, past and present. Connecting with family and learning about your ancestors provides healing, peace, and a sense of belonging. And it's easy to share what you learn with others to help and inspire them as well. Visit rootstech.org for some inspiration or visit FamilySearch.org to continue on your journey of family discovery today. Well, Genies, what a time we're all going through right now. And with all this time on our hands, you probably agree the best lemonade we can make out of this is to sharpen our genie axes and learn how to extend our family trees, gather more photos and documents, and discover those remarkable family stories our descendants can benefit from for generations. Well, I have more time now, too, and I want to help you learn what you need to know. That's why I've created a new Facebook group, Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. I'm so pleased that so many of you have already signed up and are helping us to create a supportive community of family history researchers. On this page, we can brainstorm and share ideas on how to tear down those brick walls that we all have. So feel free to join us. The Facebook page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. Feel at home with others who live in our Genie world and want to make the most of this unique time. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. Join us. All right, back at it on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. David Lambert is back in Boston, and it's time once again for Ask Us Anything, where we answer your questions about family history. Dave, this is an interesting one. It's from Dublin, Ireland. Mary McConnell has dropped us a note, and she says, guys, according to a note I found in an old family Bible, my Irish relatives left County Mayo around 1880 and settled in Chicago. What can I do with this information here? Love your show, Mary.
You know, that's true with a lot of people in Europe. They had family members that left for America and were never heard from again. So, well, Mary, you're very much in luck that you're dealing with the 1880s and not the, say, 1860s or 70s because of the Great Chicago Fire. Some things are lost because of that. But in the case of the 1880s, and I think probably survives earlier, city directories. So if you look up the name of the head of household, because ladies didn't have the right to vote yet unless she was in business for herself, you'll find the family in the city directory. So you may be able to trace them down through the address, maybe the occupation, something that you have a family tradition of. So that's a really good one. And what's nice about city directories, Fish, and I'm sure you found this, in the urban city directories, when somebody moves or when they die, the date's there or the location's there.
That's often the case when they leave town, especially in the smaller town directories, though. It seems to me if they left some small town for another place, it would indicate that. But I also love going through directories because I can find other relatives at the same address with the same name, and you might find siblings that way because they tended to all live together in the same buildings. That's
very true. And in later city directories, if you have somebody in, say, the 20th century, you can do what's called a crisscross directory that usually lists who is living at an address. So you might have an address on an old envelope or something, and you may not know what relative this is because it's just signed Love Jack. And there you go. You can find it that way. I mean, of course, the other thing, Mary, you can do is Cook County probate. You can see if you left the last will and testament. You can search places like billion graves and find a grave to see if somebody put a gravestone online. And, of course, the federal census. Now, if he came over then, he may be on the 1880 census with his family. Unfortunately, the 1890 was destroyed, but you have the 1900 right through the 1940 that you can track down this family. Yeah, and there's so much you can do with that information then, because you might be able to find relatives online who are posting trees back to that person who came over from Ireland, maybe not even knowing that they came from your group, and maybe you can connect with them, which would be amazing because you could share photographs, you could share stories. I mean, this is good stuff. This could really develop into something terrific for you. And the other thing, Mary, reach out to one of the DNA testing companies, maybe Ancestry.com. Find a DNA match, and maybe you don't even have to dig that far before you found your American cousins. Isn't that amazing? Just a little spit in a tube, and all of a sudden you're in connection. You don't have to worry about all the rest of the work because it's all done for you. You know, I have relatives that make me want to spit, but generally speaking, now I want to so I can find these relatives. Good point. The other thing that you want to do, Mary, is reach out to your other cousins that live nearby you in Ireland. Maybe somebody has a letter or a document that has some clue, or maybe even a photograph that has a photographer studio on it from Chicago that you can look at and find out when that photographer was located at that address, and even pinpoints a better year for you, because sometimes families sent photos back. And, you know, those old pictures in the frames, if you can carefully take them out of the frame, see what's written on the back, especially those older ones from the 19th century. You know, during RootsTech, I actually talked to Thomas Mueller, one of our listeners, and he wanted to remind us that Extreme Genes isn't just America's family history radio show, it's the world's, because he listens to us in Germany. Oh, that's awesome. That is great. So, guten Tag, Herr Mueller.
And thank you, Mary, for the question. And, of course, if you have a question for Ask Us Anything, you can always email us at askusanything@extremegenes.com. David, we got another one coming up here in just a few moments about a cemetery you're going to want to hear when we return in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. All right, back at it for our final segment with a final question on Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and extremegenes.com. David Allen Lambert is standing by. And David, this one comes from Paul in Iowa. It doesn't say exactly where. He says, Fish and Dave, there's an old cemetery that I found in the woods on our farm property. It's in bad shape. What, if anything, should I or could I do with this information? Boy, that's a challenging problem and a little responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the first thing is to make sure the cemetery is safe, maybe put a fence around it. Depending if you have animals on the farm, sometimes cows will wander through and step and break gravestones. But you might want to put it online. As simple as putting it on Find a Grave or Billion Graves, photograph the stones that are there. You may know the history of the property, so you may recognize the names. It might be the owners from 100 years ago or even before that. So if you kind of research your deeds back, doing a bit of a title search on the local county level, you might figure out who those people are. If someone buried turns out to be a veteran, you can actually get a free government gravestone. Whoever your local veterans agent is could maybe put a new marker for, say, a broken stone for a Civil War veteran or even a Revolutionary War veteran, depending how long ago the stones were put there. The other thing is just notify the state because they may have an inventory. Secretary of State's office would probably be the best place, or the Iowa State Historical Society may have an inventory of said cemeteries. Now, there actually is a website. I had to think about it for a minute because I remember stumbling across it a couple of years back. It's called iowagravestones.org, and it has county by county. You can browse the cemeteries that are known. So maybe somebody already knows about it, but there's a point of contact for each county. So you could reach out to that person and say, hey, listen, we got a cemetery back here. What do I do? And they probably know maybe the funding that's available or rules and regulations to make it accessible. So all of a sudden, if a descendant wants to track across your property, that's one of the biggest problems with rural cemeteries or out in the backwoods or in a farm, is that you don't want to have somebody pull up with their SUV and haul out with 10 family members and trudge across your wheat field and crush your crops.
Right.
Just to take a picture of a stone. You might want to keep maybe a scrapbook of the pictures or a notebook at your house that people can come and visit you and you could show them if it's sort of treacherous to get out there because, you know, it's a liability to walk through your property and you don't want a bunch of strangers going through and getting hurt.
Well, I would think that you might want to check also with the County Historical Society because they may already be aware of the presence of this cemetery on your property. I mean, depending obviously on how long you've owned it, it may have been known to owners previous to you. The other thing that comes to mind is that these may be ancestors of some of the people who still live in your area. And you might want to be in touch with them and work with them if you're looking to restore the cemetery, not just to protect it, but to clean up the weeds and that type of thing. I mean, it could be a great project, depending on the degree and the amount of work you want to put into this thing.
Yeah, the great thing is you found it, and now it's probably not going to get plowed under, as unfortunately some of them have in the past. Even here in the Northeast, we've lost cemeteries that are just been forgotten. The stones fall down and somebody builds a housing project over it, shy of Poltergeist from the 80s.
Boy.
So you just never know. So this is great news, and I hope that maybe the county doesn't know about it. But do try to find a grave in Billion Graves because maybe somebody already has trespassed on your property and taken photographs of it to begin with.
There you go. Paul, thanks for the question. And, of course, once again, if you have a question for Ask Us Anything, you can email us at askusanything@extremegenes.com. David, thanks so much. Talk to you next week.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. And that's our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed hearing the story from the Driveway sisters and the genie who found her kidnapped relatives' descendants from the 1890s. Unbelievable stuff. If you missed any of it, catch the podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, and ExtremeGenes.com. Talk to you next week. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.